Hello again, everybody. It's Takedown. Scott Casper continuing to cover the sport of wrestling. Dan McCool in on this call as well. Steve Frazier has announced that he'll retire from his current position as National Greco-Roman coach and move over into fundraising and corporate relations. Well, that leaves the spot open. Here to talk about it, Dan, with us today is a noted MMA pioneer, a guy who wrestled hard in Greco and did quite well, I might add. He joins us from his home in Las Vegas, Nevada. Randy Couture. Randy, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Scott?
Good, bud. Thanks for joining us. Very important topic, I feel, and I know Dan joins me in that note. It's an opportunity for us to take a next step. Talk to us about what your initial thought was when USA Wrestling notified you that Steve Frazier would be leaving his position.
Well, I think at the end of the day, results are king, and the last two quadrenniums we haven't had such great results, especially on the Greco side of the house. Being a competitor in Greco, I realized and recognized that our athletes that do commit to Greco are under the gun because we're dealing with countries that's their most popular style. I remember as a 21-year-old in the Army, wrestling for the United States Army, and just kind of breaking into the national team, seeing 10 and 11-year-old kids in Sweden that were executing technique that I had no idea how to do. It was amazing to me. They grow up doing it. So by the time we get kids that do commit in high school or in college, they're already way behind the eight ball. We rely solely on our warrior spirit and our ability to go out there and condition and out-condition our opponents, where we're dealing with Cubans, Russians, Eastern Bloc, former Eastern Bloc countries, the Scandinavians, the Turks, who grew up since they were 5 and 6 years old wrestling Greco. They have thousands of matches ahead of us in experience, and I think that in order to get Greco back up or up where it should be, to be honest, I think it's always been a weaker style. I think the organization, USA Wrestling, is kind of set up as a freestyle organization anyway. And I could cite reasons why I think that's true, but it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, if we want the results we're looking for in Greco, we're going to need that coach that's a salesman, that can appeal to the junior high and high school kids, show them the wisdom, throw down the gauntlet and say, you know what, we haven't had that many world and Olympic champions in Greco. You want to be that guy? That's going to appeal to those college guys, that has credibility and an in with the best college athletes that we have wrestling out there, and be able to convince them to make a commitment to Greco and to be that next medalist, that next world champion in Greco in that style. I think because the two styles are so different, a double leg and a single leg and a high crotch translates from college wrestling folk style over to freestyle. Obviously, the scoring's different. The technique and the tactics are completely different in Greco. It's a much more subtle style. There's a lot of sensitivity in the body that's required. It like any other combative sport, it's a sport of experience. So getting that experience. And again, I think in a lot of ways we're playing catch up when we start hitting the international stage. So getting those kids to commit at a younger age, getting them matches, international high-level coaching and competition is going to try and hopefully level the playing field, and we start getting the results. We know we have the athletes. We know we have the mentality to go out there and fight for what we want. It's getting those best kids to commit.
You like you said, we're behind. There's so many people that still think a high dive is going off a 10-meter board, where they don't realize the weapon that a high dive is in Greco. Are we, just based on guts and spirit alone, is the United States that far behind from being able to dominate in Greco-Roman?
Well, I think certainly the new rule changes and the current state of things have helped us considerably on a technical level. And like you said, a high dive, I think having a coach that recognizes that the technique and the rules of engagement for Greco are a little bit different, but taking our folk style and freestyle technique and tactics and implementing them into the rules of engagement for Greco. A high dive is basically a modified double leg. So figuring out how to set that up, obviously you're not attacking the legs in a Greco match, but I'm still changing levels and penetrating in there and attacking the waist right at the belt line instead of attacking the legs. Without the use of grabbing the legs, it's a double leg. And so being able to connect those dots for the athletes and help them in a lot of ways catch up to athletes from other countries that have been doing this style and understand the subtleties and the technique and the tactics in this style since they were 5 and 6 years old is the challenge. We don't have a lot of outlets for Greco. We don't have a lot. How many Class A FILA tournaments do we have? We don't have any. We used to have the Concord Cup. That was our only Class A FILA tournament in this country. So we're having to travel to Europe to get world-class competition. And if you want to beat the best, you got to compete with the best. And this has always been the challenge that we've had. I think our athletes, our best athletes, look at our Olympians and our world champions in freestyle. They came directly from those college ranks. And the tactics and technique in college wrestling is akin and close enough to freestyle that it's easy to make that transition. You adjust your scoring tactics and the mat tactics a little bit. And again, that setup, that hand fighting, that level change, that double leg, that high crotch, that low single, whatever that technique is, you've been doing it for years on the folk style mat, on the collegiate mat. It's not that hard to change. Connecting those dots and recognizing that you can use some of those tactics and technique in Greco, even though all the holds take place from the waist up and it's a much more upright posture, is going to be the key to getting some of those best athletes and using their attributes to go out and win medals on the Greco mat.
You speak of people being, a salesman. How much of a salesman do you need to have, find people to put forth the money to put up a tournament and make it into a level A FILA tournament in this country, so you can kind of keep people from having to train in Russia and spend considerable time over there instead of being able to say, we're here, it's our tournament, it's our stuff, help us get better.
It's a pretty significant commitment. I think, obviously we had the Kirby Cup now going on in Chicago. It's not a Class A tournament yet, but I think it has the potential. Chicago's a great town. All those European countries, the best guys, they want to come visit the States. They loved coming to Concord. I can remember, Bill Martell made a huge commitment to Greco. He was always a Greco guy, and he organized that tournament for years. And to my knowledge, that's been the only Class A FILA tournament that I know of that's been in the States. So I think attracting some of those Europeans to us and bringing them to our stomping grounds, it certainly gets us some experience and gets us on the mat. We get to see how they train. We get to see how they prepare, especially the week of competition. And then, we've always had a strong tour program. My very first tour was to Sweden. It was watching those 10 and 11-year-old kids execute technique. And I was like, what the heck was that? How did you do that? And, and I'm standing there 21, getting ready to go walk on the mat with their best guys. And they're 10 and 11-year-olds. If they were in my weight class, probably could have beat me. It wasn't a terribly fun place to be, frankly. So I think getting those top level blue chip guys from the collegiate ranks to commit to Greco is going to be a huge step in the process for us starting to see the results that we want to see with this program.
We're talking to the natural Randy Couture, one of the stars of Expendables 3, due out August 2014, now making the transition into motion pictures, television, Bellator, and all of that. Is a rather successful transition. You probably are able to sit back and take a look at some of the things that may or may not be wrong with our Greco scene right now. And one of them, as we see it anyway, at least a potential, is the division between what goes on at the United States Olympic Training Center and Sean and his guys over at the Elite Athlete Program over at the U.S. Army. Seems to me that we're perhaps not all training in the same place and with a unified effort. Your opinion?
Well, I think ultimately we end up in the same place. I mean, I came from that Army program, and they didn't have the world-class athletes program when I started. It came shortly after I left the service, but I represented the U.S. team as a soldier for a couple of years and was an alternate on the 88 team as a soldier from the U.S. Army. So I understand that program. Ultimately, those guys in the service, first of all, need to win that inter-service championship. And then, obviously they've unified their front and combined all the services to compete on a national level, an armed forces team, if you will, when it starts coming down to giving out team medals and things at the nationals and such. But at the end of the day, whether they're Marines, Navy, Air Force, or Army, they all want to be that national champion. They all want to be that number one guy going into the world team trials or the Olympic trials. And so there's a common goal there. I think that, having the inter-service championship as an Olympic qualifier created a situation where a lot of those military guys are focused on Greco. It's a Greco qualifier. I don't think it's a freestyle qualifier, but it qualifies you for the Olympic trials. At least it used to in Greco. And I think a lot of those kids in the services have gotten out of high school and gone straight into the military service. And so for those kids to compete with the other guys that are in college programs on a freestyle mat was a challenge. And I think that's why the emphasis for a lot of the armed forces has been on Greco. We have a rich history on the Greco mat from my old coach Floyd Winter and the Marine Corps program, the Navy program with Rob Herman, the Air Force program with Rich Estrella. We've put out some of the best Greco guys that have come across our country because of that emphasis, because of what those guys focus on.
But there seems to be a need for, like with whoever's the new coach, there seems to be a need to make sure everyone at every level of the Greco program need to be on the same page, not close to it, not somewhat about it, but the syllabus has to match every direction. How big is that going to be, just to be able to have everyone tuned into the same thought?
Well, I think that has to be the case from USA Wrestling and the executive director all the way down the line. Everybody has to have that common goal, which is to win medals. The fundraising, the emphasis, getting guys abroad so that they get that experience on the mat, getting the guys from abroad to come to the States so we get more chance to rub elbows with those guys without having to travel and be away from our families. Having a program like is up in Marquette at the Olympic Training Center up in Marquette, which is kind of a collegiate Greco program. The residence program for the Greco guys at the OTC in Colorado Springs. All those things are huge things in garnering, first of all, interest in those young athletes, and second of all, getting them the experience that they need to compete on the world stage. And so for all those coaches need to have that one congruent goal, which is to win medals, see our guys get their hands raised at the end of the match.
We're talking with Randy Couture about the open position that has just become available as the head coach of the Greco program for the United States Olympic team and the world teams, and a very important position. Steve Frazier has done a great job keeping the position alive. Now we need to grow the position, and that's our topic with Randy Couture, not necessarily who should be the next Greco coach, but the type of individual we should be looking for, and that would be, I think, our final question, at least along this line, is what should they be looking for? And we're talking about Les Gutches and the committee in interviewing. What should they be looking for in our next Greco coach?
Well, I think, first of all, hats off to Steve Frazier. He did an amazing job with this program, and he was, one of the last coaches I had with the national team. He's an amazing guy, a gregarious personality with a ton of energy, and I think that energy took us a long ways. And I'm glad that he's still staying with USA Wrestling in a different capacity. I would hate to see him and see us lose him as a resource at USA Wrestling, because he's been amazing. I think now it's time to find somebody that has some credibility with those high school and collegiate athletes, the top guys, and maybe put a different spin on it a little bit, think outside the box a little bit, and get some new perspective, some new energy in there to, again, I think at the end of the day, it's sales. It's convincing these kids to make that commitment and to commit to this style.
Randy, there's been some talk out there that you might have a new set of headphones coming out. And I bring this up mainly because wrestlers as a group have generally one or two rather scarred up ears.
Yeah, well, I can guarantee you they're going to have to fit over these. They're going to be worth the crap.
Oh, right. Because you're not putting any of those earbuds in, are you? No, I don't think.
Well, they have to be pretty small.
Yeah, right.
They do fit, but they have to be pretty small.
All right, so 2014, August of 2014, a little later on this year, Expendables 3 comes out. The last I heard is you were working on a new TV show for Spike, and that was a Save My Gym TV show. Where are you at on that project?
Gym Rescue is now in the can. Should start airing here on Spike TV in February. Haven't gotten a solid date yet. They're wrapping up the last bit of post-production, so it's ready to air. But I'm hearing that it's going to start airing in February. I've got another movie coming out with a very, very hot director right now, Joe Callahan. It's a movie called Stretch with Patrick Wilson and Chris Pine. There's a whole bunch of actors in this movie. I got to play a cameo role as a Russian limo driver. It was a lot of fun. I challenged people to see if they can recognize me even in this movie, because I have quite a get-up on. But it'll be out in March, and then obviously Expendables 3 comes out in August.
You and Stallone have partnered up on these expendable movies in I think an outstanding way. It shows your growth over the three films. But have you enjoyed the process?
It's been amazing. Yeah, what better group of guys to be rubbing elbows with and working with than that crew of guys? It's a lot of fun. You get to dress up, run around with guns and tactical gear. I was like, really? You're going to pay me for this? This is amazing.
It's like playing Army in the backyard.
Yep, which I did plenty of as a kid.
Amen. I think you had was it a yellow Stingray?
Yes.
Yeah, an amazing steed it was. Randy, it's always good to talk to you. We appreciate your opinions, and surely we want to see the Greco program not just continue. We want to see it thrive, and hopefully with your input, that of others that really truly do care about it, it will do just that. We appreciate your time today, and say best to Val and Scott back at the studio as well down in Las Vegas.
Will do. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Dan. You guys have a great day.
Thank you, sir.